Welcome to Lost Chicagoland Department Stores, our current exhibition. My name is Sarah Cox, and I'm the curator of exhibits here at the Elmhurst History Museum. This exhibit was part of a collaboration with author and historian Leslie Goddard. It's based off of her 2022 book, Lost Chicago Department Stores. With her, we worked on the content, images, and artifacts for this exhibition. Now, Chicago was a very popular place after the 1850s, particularly after 1871. Now, before 1871, which was the year of the Chicago fire, Lake Street was our popular shopping district where you can find a large number of dry goods stores. But it was after the Chicago fire and a gentleman named Potter Palmer who decided to move the shopping district to State Street. Here, he moved his own dry goods store from Lake Street to State Street and started to buy up large amounts of real estate on this famous shopping district. The first people to take advantage of this was Levi Leader and Marshall Fields. They worked for Potter Palmer and eventually would go on to buy his dry good business and start their own business of Fields, Leader and Company. Now, Field, Leader and Company began a trend of what were known as the Grand Palaces of Shopping. These stores included Marshall Field and Company and Carson Pirie Scott. Now, they're considered the Grand Palaces of Shopping because of the experience that people had shopping at these locations. They opened their flagship stores on State Street, and they created the experience of spending all day in a store. They wanted you to shop there, they wanted you to eat there, and they wanted you to use their amenities. So oftentimes, you would have this experience of dressing up, going down to State Street, you would shop in these stores, you would have your lunch and tea here. They had lounges, they had places for you to send out your mail on their letterhead. They had nurseries to watch your kids while you shop. They also had access to telephones to make your phone calls to family and friends. They also had luxury brands and eventually would go on to have catalogs to become more accessible to people not living in Chicago. What also made these two stores a very luxurious experience was the fact that they tried to get the best of the best. Both of the locations were built by Chicago architects. Marshall Field and Company was built by Daniel Burnham, and Carson Pirie Scott was built by Louis Sullivan. They also included artists on the interior design of their stores as well. Marshall Field famously had the Tiffany Company build the ceiling mosaic of glass that is still in existence today. They also had custom artists building their mannequins and window displays. And Marshall Field was one of the first to have a partnership with a luxury fashion house, that being Christian Dior. In the exhibit, we feature one of the Christian Dior hats along with one of their advertisements. Some of the well-known features of these Grand Palaces of Shopping were their restaurants. Today, only one still exists, the Walnut Room, which is located in the 1906 building that was Marshall Field and Company. As part of our exhibition, we feature menus and items from these restaurants in both Carson Pirie Scott and Marshall Field. Now, Fields had a Narcissus Room, the English Room, and the Walnut Room. They also had a men's lounge. While Carson Pirie Scott was really centered around the idea of Scotland, so they had places like the Heather House, which featured artwork that was from around Scotland. No exhibition about department stores would be complete without featuring Frango mints, which are still available for purchase today. These famous mints actually came from a department store out on the West Coast, and the brand was bought by Marshall Field and Company. Now, here in our exhibition, we have a few examples of the different designs of boxes, but we also have a smelling station, and it smells like Frango mints. In our next section, we have our mail order kings. This was Sears, Roebuck and Company and Montgomery Ward. Now, what was different about these stores from Carson Pirie Scott and Marshall Field and Company was that these stores began as just cataloged stores, so they just had warehouses in Chicago. Now, the first one to send out a catalog was Montgomery Ward in 1872, which was a one-page catalog. These stores were known for having affordable prices and a wide array of items for sale. You could buy anything from a tractor to a sewing machine to a brand new hat. Now, places like Sears also had kit homes where you could order your own home and pay monthly. We have an example of one of those here in Elmhurst, and it's actually called the Elmhurst, and it's located over on Chandler Street. Now, a lot of people got excited when those catalogs would show up in the mail, particularly the Christmas ones from Sears, the wish books. Kids often remember circling the items they wanted to send off to Santa during the holiday season. Now, some of these companies also had their own in-house brands, much like Marshall Field and Carson Perry Scott. Sears, for example, had Kenmore washers, dryers, and refrigerators, and a number of other electronics. They also had Craftsman tools, and I've had a number of people tell me that they still have some of these items because they were meant to last forever. Sears and Montgomery Wards were often known for their policy: if you didn't like it, you got to return it, and they often had lifetime guarantees. Our next section is our big neighborhood chains. These were stores that were trying to not only compete with the bigger stores, but they were trying to make a name for themselves. Unlike the other stores located on State Street, these stores got their beginning in the neighborhoods of Chicago, and that was Wieboldt's and Goldblatt's. They were trying to cater to the larger working class immigrant neighborhoods and people of color out into the smaller neighborhoods of Chicago. Here they offered great deals, great customer service, and they had a big following, especially up until their closing in the 80s. One way Goldblatt's and Wieboldt's tried to compete with the bigger box stores was offering trade stamps. A lot of people are very familiar with this trade stamps. Much like today, where we have rewards programs through our phones and through apps, they had the trade stamp program. With each purchase you made, you earned these trade stamps and you would place them in the book. A lot of our visitors remember helping their parents stick the stamps into the book and looking forward to the deals they would get later, which would often result in money off or a special product later on. We have an example of those trade books here in the exhibition. Another type of department store that came about during this time was our local community department stores. These were located out in the suburbs and often had 1 to 2 locations. They wanted to offer the same customer service and perks that the big stores offered on State Street in Chicago. Here in Elmhurst, we had 3 big names. That was the Elm, Old Swings, and Ruby's. Here in the exhibition, we feature a number of department stores located throughout the suburbs and take a particular focus on the ones that were here in Elmhurst. They also try to compete with other stores like Wieboldt's and Goldblatt's by offering the trade stamp program, as mentioned earlier. In the 1960s and 70s, there was a new trend in shopping. Stores which earned nicknames like Fields, Carson's, Sears, and Ward's began to come out to the suburbs. And they did that through shopping malls. Shopping malls transformed the way that we shopped here in the Chicagoland area. Here, it offered the same experience and luxury that you would find on State Street, except out here in the suburbs. Shopping malls not only transformed the way that we shopped by making it more accessible for us to visit the box stores that were located on State Street, but they also transformed our shopping from our main street in our hometowns to these big locations like Yorktown, Oakbrook, and Woodfield. Now, these locations still exist today. However, the anchor stores have changed. We also go to shopping malls to go to the movies, play miniature golf, and do a number of other activities apart from shopping. Now, no exhibition about department stores would be complete without talking about the holidays. Everybody has memories of going to these large box stores down in Chicago for the holidays. Each store tried to outdo each other with decorations and events throughout the holiday season. One of the most well-known Christmas displays was the Marshall Field windows. Here in our gallery, we have examples of one of those on loan from Macy's. This is from the 2004 window, Snow White and the Fairest of Them All, based off the Grimm's fairy tale. Now, a number of other department stores also had window displays to compete with them. But Marshall Field, the window displays didn't really start until 1944. Before that, they just featured merchandise and often didn't tell a story. It's after that that we start to see them recreate books, poems, famous Christmas tales in their storied windows. The department stores also had different characters that came out during the holidays. For Marshall Field, it was Uncle Mistletoe and Aunt Holly. For Montgomery Ward, it was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which started its humble beginnings as a Christmas tradition. And Weebolt adopted Cinnamon Bear, which was a famous radio show at the time. Today, sadly, none of these department stores still exist. However, many of us still have the cherished memories of visiting these stores, whether it's shopping with family or friends, or the holiday experiences that we had there. You can still see the evidence of these stores when you visit Chicago, especially on State Street in the architecture. You can still see the 1906 Marshall Field and Company building, which still has the plaques outside and offers a tour of the building and the different sections. You can still see Carson Peary Scott's custom-made Louis Sullivan outside wrought iron designs. You can see details overhead the doors, door handles throughout Chicago. Today, shopping has changed. It has become an online shopping experience for many, going to places like Amazon. There's also a new movement of shopping local, and that's what we promote here in Elmhurst, Illinois. We have a number of stores here located at our city center, York and Villette, and on Spring Road. A number of these businesses have been here since the 1940s. While today's tour was just some of the highlights that this exhibition has to offer, I encourage you to come and visit, where you'll see artifacts and historical photos from the many number of department stores we have featured. While our November tour of the exhibition is sold out, another one with me is scheduled for January 2024. We hope you can make it out. Thank you so much to our sponsors and the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation. I'd also like to thank our contributors to this exhibition, particularly Leslie Goddard, with her knowledge and expertise in the area of Chicagoland Department Stores. Leslie's book, Lost Chicago Department Stores, is available here at our museum store. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you soon at the Elmhurst History Museum.